start this presentation by explaining the function of the eyes. So basically, eyes have two main functions. What are the functions of the eyes? Number one, eyes are the receptor organs of sight in which it allows you to see in all directions. The second function is to receive images and transmit them to the brain. Now we move to the structure of the eyes. Structure of the eyes was divided into two parts, which are anexa and eyeballs. Anexa was the structure outside the eyeball. Anexa means the accessory or adjoining anatomical parts of an organ. This part includes the orbit, eye muscle, eyelid, eyelashes, conjunctiva, and lacrimal apparatus. Meanwhile, the other part is the eyeball. That includes the wall of eyeball, segment of the eyeball, and the structure of the retina. Next, we are going to discuss more details about the structure of the eyes. The first one is the orbit, or also known as eye socket. What is exactly the orbit? Orbit is the bony cavity of the skull that contains and protects the eyeball and its associated muscles, blood vessels, and nerves. The orbit also includes the eyelid and bones around the eyes. The muscles are the second structure of the eyes. There are 6 major eye muscles which are arranged in 3 pairs and are attached to each eye. What are the names of those muscles? There are superior and inferior oblique muscle, superior and inferior rectus muscle, and lastly, lateral and medial rectus muscle. These all muscles work together to enable large eye movements. Oblique described as an angle that's slanted but is not perpendicular or parallel, and rectus means straight. What type of vision that is possible to be produced by the eyes? It is called binocular visions. This type of visions occurs when the muscle of both eyes work together in coordination to make normal depth perception. Depth perception is the ability to see things in 3 dimensions. For the next part, I will pass to the next presenter, ASNIE.
Thank you, AFIQAH. Moving on to the eyelids, eyebrows, and eyelashes. Eyelids are a fold of skin that closes over the eye to protect it. Eyebrows is an area of short hairs above each eye. The canthus is the corner where the upper and lower eyelids meet. The upper and lower eyelids, along with the eyebrows and eyelashes, help protect eyeballs from foreign matter, excessive light, and injuries due to the other causes. Eyelashes are the short hairs that grow along the edges of the upper and lower eyelids. The cilia are the small hairs making up the eyebrows and eyelashes, and tarsus, also known as the tarsal plate, serve as the main structural component of the eyelids that is within the upper and lower eyelids, providing the necessary stiffness and shape. The conjunctiva. What is it? It is the transparent mucous membrane that lines the underside of each eyelid and continues to form a protective covering over the exposed surface of the eyeball. Next is the lacrimal apparatus. Lacrimal apparatus is the medical name for your tear system, consisting of the structures that produce, store, and remove tears. Lacrimation is the secretion of tears. There are 5 components of our tear system. The first, lacrimal gland, is the secret lacrimal fluid, tears, located on the underside of the upper eyelid, just above the outer corner of each eye. It makes the salty water become tears. Second, lacrimal fluid, also known as tears, is to maintain moisture on the anterior surface of the eyeball. The blinking distributes the tears across the eye. Third is the lacrimal canal, consisting of a duct at the inner corner of each eye that will collect tears and empty them into the lacrimal sac. Crying is the overflowing of tears from the lacrimal canals. The fourth lacrimal sac, also known as tear sac, is an enlargement of the upper portion of the lacrimal duct. Tear sac acts like temporary storage for tears that have just left the eyes. And last is the lacrimal duct, known as the nasolacrimal duct, is the passageway that drains excess tears into the nose. For the next part, I will pass to the next presenter, Nadhirah.
Thank you, Nur AZLAN. For my part, I will be explaining the anatomy and physiology of the eyeballs in detail. As you can see, the picture right here is the structures of the eyeball. The eyeball, also known as the globe, is a 1-inch sphere with only about 1/6 of its surface visible. There are 4 terms of the eyeball. Firstly, the optic is pertaining to the eye or sight. Secondly, ocular is pertaining to the eye. Thirdly, extraocular means outside the eyeball. Lastly, intraocular is within the eyeball. Then we look into the walls of the eyeball. So the walls of the eyeball are made up of 3 layers, which are the sclera, choroid, and retina. As you can see in the picture here, on the right side of the most top layer is the sclera, that is also known as the white of the eye. The sclera maintains the shape of the eye and protects the delicate inner layers of tissue. This dough fibrous tissue forms the outer layer of the eye, except for the part covered by the cornea. To be noted, the combining form sclero means the white of the eye, and it also means heart. The next layer of the eyeball is the choroid. It is also known as the choroid that is defined as the opaque middle layer of the eyeball that contains many blood vessels and provides the blood supply for the entire eye. The meaning of opaque is that light cannot pass through this substance. Next, we come to the first layer of the eyeball is the retina. This part is the most sensitive inner layer that lines the posterior segment of the eye. The retina receives nerve impulses and transmits them to the brain via the optic nerve. This is also known as the second cranial nerve. Moving on to the next part, the segments of the eyeball. Firstly, the segments of the eyeball are basically the interior of the eyeball, which is divided into two, the anterior and posterior segments. The anterior segment of the eye makes up the front one-third of the eyeball. This segment is divided into anterior and posterior chambers. The anterior chamber is located behind the cornea and in front of the iris. Meanwhile, the posterior chamber is located behind the iris and in front of the ligaments that hold the lens in place. For your information, the posterior chamber and the posterior segment are two different things. Next, on the anterior segment, there is aqueous humor, which is also known as aqueous fluid that fills both of these chambers. The term aqueous basically means watery or containing water. As used here, the term humor describes any clear body liquid or semi-fluid substance. The aqueous humor helps the eye maintain its shape and nourishes the intraocular structures. This fluid is constantly filtered and drained through the trabecular meshwork and the canal of Schlemm. After that, there is intraocular pressure, IOP, which is a measurement of the fluid pressure inside of the eye. This pressure is regulated by the rate at which aqueous humor enters and leaves the eye. Last but not least, the posterior segment, which makes up the remaining two-thirds of the eyeball, which is located on the back side of the eyeball or in detail behind the iris and in front of the ligament that holds the lens, which is lined with the retina and filled with vitreous humor. This is also known as vitreous gel, which is a soft, clear, jelly-like mass that contains millions of fine fibers. These fibers, which are attached to the surface of the retina, help the eye maintain its shape. That's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter, Nur AMIRAH.
Thank you, Nadhirah. Next, let's take a look at the retina, which is a layer at the back of the eyeball with light-sensitive cells that send nerve impulses to the optic nerve and brain, where a visual image is produced. There are 5 structures of retina, which are, first, the rods and cones, which receive images that have passed through the lens of the eye. These images are converted into nerve impulses and transmitted to the brain via the optic nerve. There are 2 types of photoreceptors in the human eye, which are rods that process the black and white receptors and cones are the color receptors. Secondly, the round area at the center of your retina, at the back of your eyeball, which is the macula, also known as the macula lutea, is the clearly defined light-sensitive area in the center of the retina that is responsible for sharp central vision. Also to be noted that the term macula means a small spot. Thirdly, the fovea centralis is a pit in the middle of the macula. Color vision is the best in this area because it contains a high concentration of cones and no rods. Fourthly, the optic disc, also known as the blind spot, is a small region in the eye where the nerve ending of the retina enter the optic nerve. Why it was known as the blind spot? Because it does not contain any rods or cones to convert images into the nerve impulses. Lastly, the optic nerve, which is transmitted these nerve impulses from the retina to the brain. Next, the uvea. What is the uvea? Uvea is the pigmented layer of the eyes. It has a rich blood supply and consists of choroid, ciliary body, and iris. For the ciliary body, it is located within the choroid, which is a set of muscle and suspensory ligament that adjust the thickness of the lens to refine the focus of light rays on the retina. The ciliary body produces aqueous humor that fills the anterior segment of the eye. It also focuses on nearby objects, which this muscle adjusts the lens to make it thicker, and to focus on distant objects, this muscle stretches the lens so it thinner. For the next part, I will pass to the last presenter, Siti KHALIJAH.
Thank you, Nur AMIRAH. I will explain about the iris. The iris is the colorful circular structure that surrounds the pupil. It consists of two sheets of smooth muscle with contrary actions, which are dilation and contraction. These muscles, which regulate the size of the pupil, determines how much light enters the retina. For instance, the muscles of the iris dilate, increasing the pupil's opening in order to increase the amount of light entering the eye. The muscles of the iris contract, reducing the pupil's opening to lessen the amount of light entering the eye. You can see in different lighting conditions thanks to this constant size change. Next, we will look at the cornea, pupil, and lens. First and foremost is the cornea, which is the transparent outer surface of the eye, brown structure that covers the iris and the pupil. It is the primary structure of focusing light rays entering the eye. Moreover, the pupil is the black circular opening in the center of the iris that permits light to enter the eye. Last but not least is the lens. It is the clear, flexible, curved structure that focuses images on the retina. The lens is contained within a clear capsule located behind the iris and the pupil. The lens can change shape, allowing the eyes to focus on near or far objects. Now let's talk about the 5 normal actions of the eyes. Starting with accommodation, which is the process whereby the eyes make adjustment for seeing objects at various distances. These adjustments include contraction and dilation of the pupil, movement of the eyes, and changes in the shape of the lens. Next, the simultaneous inward movement of both eyes towards one another is known as convergence. This occurs in an effort to maintain single binocular vision as an object comes nearer. Ametropia is the normal relationship between the refractive power of the eye and the shape of the eye that allows light rays to concentrate properly on the retina. And then we have refraction, also known as refractive power, is the lens's ability to bend light rays so that they are focused on the retina. Lastly, the ability to distinguish object details and shape at a distance is referred to as visual acuity. And that's all from us. Thank you.